And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. Joe DeLeone, Sean Anderson, 2 former college football players from the University of Rhode Island. Today, we have so much to talk about with Week 8 of college football. It lived up to the hype. Last week was crazy. This week was crazy. Nobody is safe from an unexpected loss. And we got to start, Sean, by jumping into Texas, Georgia. Before we do, though, can you tell our listeners, talk about a left turn right there. You can tell our listeners, they thought we were getting the preview. You tell our listeners, or to the recap, rather. God, can you tell our listeners about BetOnline?
You had me with the bait and switch right there. BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for everything sports betting. If forget you made a bet before you go make a bet, happens. Do it at BetOnline. Double down, fade yourself. I did it last night and still ended up positive betting on the Yankees somehow. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, NBA to political props, when the game's over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack, poker. They got 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.
All right, Sean, first game that we have to jump into, as I said, Georgia beats Texas 32-15. A lot of people picked Texas to win this football game. I think a lot of people jumped to conclusions early without having much evidence on Texas to say so confidently that they were going to win. And one thing we were very quickly reminded of is that it takes time to be ready to play in the SEC. Sure, you can beat up on Mississippi State and your fellow foe, Oklahoma, from the Big 12, but you are not ready yet to compete with the big dogs in Georgia. I think the biggest thing that stood out to me in this, and we're going to talk about a couple of the angles here. I want to talk about the stupid bottle thing. I want to talk about the quarterback change in the middle of this game that was extremely idiotic, and then the finish here. But the one thing that stood out, and I think why Georgia was able to win this game and should have won it a little bit more handedly if things didn't go bonkers batshit in the third quarter with everything that it transpired. The physicality of Georgia's defensive line really showed up because there were so many drives that Texas was starting to build momentum. They're starting to move the ball. And then out of nowhere, boom, they get a pressure. Boom, they get a sack. They get in Quinn Ewers' face. Even though they were finding success on the ground, the pass rush, what was starting to tee off on Quinn Ewers. So Georgia, I think that they're starting to get their mojo back. And as I said, this entire week and after the Alabama loss as well, you can't count out Georgia. When they lose a football game, they're going to figure out what went wrong, and they're going to use that to galvanize them and to figure out how to bounce back.
Yeah, online quarterback coaches were noting that Quinn Ewers was taking a step too far in his drops.
Who?
Ben Kurt was analyzed.
Shut up, Ben Kurt.
Oh, now Ben Kurt's on the hot seat?
Yeah, shut up. That. Okay, wait, hold on. Watch the film and then do that. Please don't do that in the middle of the game. Don't be that guy. That is horrible.
He was noting that it was giving an edge to the Georgia edge and getting more pressures on Ewers. The defense for Georgia showed up.
Call into the sideline. Ask Quinn to change it. Moron. Hey, Quinn, I think that you should try this. Yeah, he's at halftime. He's pulling up Ben Card on Twitter going, you know what? That's a great point. I need to change this in the middle of the game.
I bet he was on his phone on halftime because I don't know if he knew if he was going to be starting the second half at that point. Regardless, the Georgia defense was hitting. I don't know how many targeting has become a hot button issue. Yeah, okay. Sometimes a defender lowers their head and hits an offensive player. Sometimes it's called, sometimes it's not called. I don't know anymore when it's supposed to be called. Sometimes a defender hits a player on the shoulder. Regardless, the Georgia team was hitting harder than the Texas team, and I think that made an impact. It was a long game for Texas. Even with the stalls, you could tell their offense had no momentum. It was pulling teeth to move the ball down the field. On their second to last drive in the fourth quarter, I think they achieved their first third down conversion of the game. Holy hell. The number one ranked team doesn't have a third down conversion through 3/4 of a football game. Embarrassing. That's rough. That's bad. Good for Georgia's defense for stepping up. And I noted it's refreshing that they showed up in the first half and we didn't have to see a true slot fest the whole way through. And we saw the potential of Georgia. If you wrote them off, you're a goofball. You might have just been overly emotional about the loss. But this is a dominant performance against a Texas team that does have respectable talent.
I think we're going to spend less time talking about Georgia in this segment because of everything that goes into this with Texas and the hype that came into this for Texas. Final, just quick thought with Georgia. Bounce back. Huge bounce back. They're returning back to the national championship conversation that they never left, that some people thought that they did. The Texas fans would have swore that they were playing that they were playing TCU this week, the way that they tried to make this Texas opponent seem as weak as it possibly was. It was ridiculous, some of the commentary. But to talk about Texas, I have to bring up 4:48 in the second quarter. Quinn Ewers gets benched. It's the only way to describe it. Arch Manning comes into the game. I'm sure some people want to rationalize this. Well, the bad sack fumble and all that. You got to take him out and you got to give him the number one team in the country should never pull their starting quarterback for a redshirt freshman. I don't care who's the guy behind him. If you're supposed to be that good, you should not have to resort to that. You should be able to elevate if your starting quarterback plays bad. That's what Georgia did. Carson Beck played like ass. He did not have a good game. He made a lot of bad decisions.
What?
Dude, I mean, those
175 and 3 picks?
Yeah.
That's a bad one?
Okay, all right. Obviously, you agree with me, but the rest of the team elevated around him. Quinn Ewers taking him out disrupts the flow of the offense, and he clearly came back the next drive in the third quarter and was able to march down and score. It was so unnecessary and felt like it really took away from the flow of the offense. And of course, I know people in the comments are going to bring up, well, what about Alabama, the national championship game, when they did that with Tua and Jalen Hurts? That is an exception. For the 100th time, when people love to bring that stuff up, there are exceptions to these rules. It does not mean it works in that situation and it's something that makes sense. I thought that was incredibly idiotic and unnecessary, especially when Arch comes into the game and he was just as spooked as Quinn Ewers was.
There are layers to this move, Joseph. Sarkisian, former Alabama guy, tried to pull a Saban, thought he had that kind of juice, thought, hey, this is the big stage. I saw the big guy do it. Who's the big guy with the number one team now? Me, Sark. I'm going to try to pull it off. It didn't work. Secondly, if you're going to try to pull this move off, do it at halftime. Do it after the half. That is a big knee bend when you still got 5 minutes left in the second quarter to say, viewers, we're done with you. We're only down 20, but we're done with you right now. We're going to let Arch step in and try to take us to halftime with momentum. No. That just leaves a disrupted and cracked locker room for you to go into. If you want to make that decision, do it with your team and let it be a second half takeover. That means that there's no speculation going into the half. You don't have Dan Orlovsky, who is embarrassing on the desk, trying to just glaze the Arch Manning and be first to the party, to be, I was on this bandwagon for everyone else, just in case he did go out and light the world up. He didn't. He's a redshirt freshman against Georgia. Track record isn't so good for those guys. So it was a faulty move. It was foolish. It just made the whole program look bad. It made the offense look weak, and I'm sure it hurt Ewers' mental throughout the rest of the game and probably for the rest of the season, knowing that the heat is always going to be on in case we do go down.
Also, on top of this, if you were going to make that change, why not commit to it? It felt really non-committal and not thought out to bring him into the game and then return Quinn Ewers. There is nothing, and I'd love to hear what Sark's post-game comments on this are going to be, but there's nothing that logically makes sense why you would do that for a couple of drives. It didn't do anything to boost your offense. It didn't get points on the board. You just looked extremely, extremely non-committal to whatever your decision was. To talk about the penalty that happened, I hate this that the officials, it was OPI. But for the officials to allow bottles being thrown onto the field, and I'm sure this wasn't going through their heads in the moment, but they just created, a lot of people pointed this out, they created a horrible precedent. The penalty should have been thrown on the fans for throwing things onto the field. That happens all the time at all levels of football, in all sports, that when things are thrown onto the field of play, it is a penalty. And instead, you allowed that to change your mind on the decision of what said penalty was. That was BS. That was ridiculous. And that's something that is going to cause rippling effects. And I'm curious because apparently, according to Ross Dellinger, he said that apparently the SEC has been demanded of them to provide an explanation on that situation by multiple media members. So there is going to probably be some relatively serious repercussions or changes that come with that. If there are objects thrown onto the field in the future, a penalty has to be called because of the way that this transpired.
You either call the defensive pass interference and stick by it, and then the interception doesn't happen, or you pick it up immediately no matter what. I would give you a minute of deliberation if you really felt like it, but the ball had been spotted. The offense was moving. The call was made. The game was going forward. And just because the fans stopped the game, we get to have another powwow. We get to deliberate some more.
I've never seen
We've seen the mustard bottles being thrown at Lane. We've seen the golf balls on the field and the beer cans and the water bottles and everything. All right. We've seen cats and geese run on the field and create a stoppage. Streakers with their asses out. Seen it. But I've never seen a call get overturned in that manner just because you had a little bit of time. It felt gross. It was insidious. I think it left both parties with a bad taste in their mouth because that just reeks of someone put a call in. Hey, we got time. Let's make the call. Everything else is just going sloppy. We had a bad slop fest game, and now we have an opportunity to reverse this thing. Was it the right call? Yes, but you already made a call. You can't go reverse it just because you had time. It was gross. It was negligent, and it hurt the sport to do that.
Lights too bright, piss down your leg. That's what happened with the officials because immediately after that, they had a bunch of similar, just really shaky calls that they were trying to make. After all that, just bad officiating today across the board. Tennessee beats Alabama at home, Sean, 24-17. Strong win for the Vols as they are recapturing their playoff hopes. I got to admit, I was watching this game, was a little bit distracted towards the end of it because it was doing a VR stream. So if I'm missing any details for anyone in the comments, apologize. Gonna definitely rewatch this before, tomorrow and whatnot. But this game, though, Sean, I thought when tracking what was happening at the very end and what was happening in halftime, sloppy penalties really took over for Alabama. I give Tennessee a ton of credit for the way that they finished this game, and I give them a ton of credit for allowing for their season to still be alive. They are in control of capability of being able to go 11-1 with a pretty easy schedule stretch that they have coming up. But my focus is turned on Alabama, who is perennially one of the best teams in the country, and they're taking a step backward. After the Georgia win, they've taken a step back. They are a team that is not focused. They're playing sloppy, undisciplined football, and it's showing up with the 15 penalties that they had in this game, with the multiple turnovers that they had. It is a team that has so much talent in the ceiling to be one of the best programs in the country, but is not playing like it. Their capable accomplishments this year, I think, are stunted at 9-3. I think that they're going to lose to LSU, but I'm not worried. That's the important thing here. I am not worried for the long-term future of Alabama football because Kalen DeBoer has been recruiting better than everybody expected, and we need to acknowledge and give grace to a head coach who is taking over a team in his first year. It is rarely a simple process. It is a rarity to have the Sonny Dykes of the world, and again, we see how that's turned around, but the Sonny Dykes of the world that takes his team to a national championship in the first year, let alone for Kalen DeBoer to be able to do that in his first year in the SEC. There is so much room for recoverability, and all I'm asking for Alabama fans is to be patient. I know so many don't want to be, but please be patient.
Big ask there, especially seeing regression from a quarterback that we thought had legit Heisman potential in Jalen Milroe, who has another 1 touchdown, 2 pick day. 20 incompletions. Can't do it. Can't have it. It's a rough one. It's another rough one for him and his resume this year. This hurts him. This hurts the Alabama team, him not being able to step up, rally a team when Tennessee was trying to give it away, when Tennessee was incompletion fest, Tennessee was slop fest, can't tackle the quarterback, can't do the things that they should do. Thank God for Dylan Sampson. Build a statue for him. He's the only reason this season has stayed alive for this Tennessee Volunteers team. 26 carries, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a big play every single time they needed it. He's the hero of this Tennessee team this season. It's not Heupel. It's not Nico. It's not Pierce Jr. It's Dylan Sampson and the run game. That's all it is. That's what they out Alabama'd Alabama today. They just got by because they could run the ball better. Alabama couldn't. I think they only had like 75 yards on the ground. Shocking. And Nico had a bad day. He had a bad day and he was catching heat. And I respect that he kept taking shots.
Yeah, well, that's the big thing is that towards the end of the game, he started to connect on those shots. The first half, it was the same as what we were seeing in the last few games where something's off, confidence is off. He feels like a pitcher who has the yips where they're just misfiring on every ball. And then he started to connect, and he connected on a couple big plays. Those are the types of plays that you need to turn around your offense. And I don't know what that bounce back looks like, but it's promising that they were able to finally hit those, and it meant them winning the game because he did.
The red zone seam route touchdowns were masterclass. I'll give him that. Perfect ball, perfect touch, finesse, accuracy, all of that. And before you get on me, Tennessee wide receivers have a drop issue also. It was apparent in previous weeks, and it's still happening today. I know Squirrel White went down. He had a bad land on his shoulder. But I'm worried. If I'm a Tennessee fan, I'm not walking out of this one with a ton of confidence because we did it in an ugly way. I'm sure everyone loves the gritty win against Alabama. You go back-to-back against Alabama at home. But eye test, don't love it. Don't love this Tennessee squad eye test. You call me a goober. You say I never played football. I'll show you the resume. But I know what I'm looking at when I'm watching ball. Tennessee not on fraud watch. Huge, massive win. And they have a path legitly to the playoff because major four opponents they have to go against: Kentucky, Mississippi State, Georgia, and Vandy. 10-2. They could easily be 10-2 sitting in the playoffs with a maybe more confident team at that point. But right now, it is not a good eye test win for me.
Sean's 5'6", if you can't tell from the framing of his.
You're sick puppy. You know we get new listeners on these weekly game recaps.
If anyone can guess Sean's height correctly in the comments, we'll give you a high five virtually.
Is that just gonna be a high five emoji under their comment? I can do that.
I don't know. You'll get a personal message. We'll send you a personal message. Sean, Miami had a phenomenal game here offensively. They were able to outlast in a shootout Louisville 52-45. God, this was a great way to start the morning. This was a great day to start the college football slate with a back and forth seesawish game where everybody was pissed at the officials for a lot of reasons. We're not going to spend time talking about that. Instead, we're going to glaze the shit out of Cam Ward because that's what we love to do on this channel because he is so freaking good. First of all, though, I keep saying this. Every year there is a team that is just the ball bounces their way, the calls go their way, everything works out. When you expect them to lose, they still find a way to win. It was Washington last year. It was TCU the year before. We have classified them as the Magic team. I am donning that onto this Miami team. They are the Magic team. Oh. They find ways to get themselves out of trouble all the time. And the trouble stakes are going to peak up, Sean. There are going to be some more troublesome stakes further, more so than the rallying point behind Cal and the crazy late play against Virginia Tech. There is going to be a lot more of it. I still think that this Miami team fits into that category. But why we love Cam Ward? Man, this guy is special. The throws that this kid can make. He is QB1 in the 2025 class. He can evade pressure unlike anybody in college football right now. His traits are through the roof. And this Miami team, as long as that kid is under center or in shotgun, rather, I don't know if they go under center actually. Now that I think about it,
I wouldn't.
Yeah, they're all
think that. They
yeah,
would.
they're air raid. They're all shotgun. That was a dumb comment by me. He's not in the pros yet. But for every single game that he is in shotgun and he's throwing those passes, Miami can be carried by his capabilities.
He's stellar. My Magic Team juniors of the year, Indiana and Iowa State, I guess, at this point. Phenomenal Magic Team juniors, but it is Miami. I've never seen games just get pulled out of a rabbit's hat like they do. Giving up 45 points to Louisville. Chalk that, yeah. Who had that on their bingo card? Nobody. It didn't seem feasible. But if you told me Miami was going to score 52 against Louisville, I'd believe you. I'd put money on it. You know why? That offense is stellar. Cam Ward is a dominant quarterback in college football. And week after week, he rises up those just visible power rankings of who you would believe in, who you have confidence in to win you a tough, close game. Cam Ward is that dude. My biggest issue with Miami, why aren't they running Damian Martinez more? 12 carries
Yeah.
is not enough for that guy.
Well,
He had 89 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown was miraculous. He runs harder than anybody in college football, maybe. He's really, really
well,
good.
the
And
only
I
kid who might run just as hard as him is Mark Fletcher, who's somehow bigger than him. He's a sophomore who's 6'2", 225. And then Martinez, we know, is 5'11", 240. So it is just a slugfest. You're getting hit with two bowling balls.
I still need more from him. I think the offense is better when they have him rolling. Today was more evident of that when possible. When Miami seemed to be stalling, Louisville has momentum. He breaks 8 tackles and scores a touchdown when they really needed to separate. That's what he does. I worry about this Miami team being a little bit not sustainable on defense, though. 448 yards given up to Louisville. We've seen this team. They're not that good, Joe.
Look,
they're not 448
no.
yards.
Hold on. No, Louisville has one of the best. I know I'm going to have to do this battle with Blake tomorrow. Miami is one of the best, not Miami. Louisville has one of the best receiving groups in the country. They have a very good receiving core. They're 3 deep. I would say that they're top 10 receiving core in the country.
I'm not going to say the words that you've said about Tyler Shuck on this broadcast.
Nothing to do with Tyler Shuck. It has everything to do with
342 yards.
He's an experienced quarterback. I have been far less negative on him than I have the other LinkedIn needing quarterbacks. I've been a little. He's probably at the top of the list.
Maybe it was just the heat of the moment in the Notre Dame
LinkedIn
game.
superstars.
Yeah, it's just but you're letting him throw for 4 touchdowns, 342 yards on you. I know
They couldn't run the ball, so they had to do something.
Dude, I'm just saying. If the Magic team is going to be a Magic team, I need them to have a good stalwart defensive game at some point to show me that they're truly magical. Because if the offense really does start stalling, it can't be a miracle Hail Mary every single time. You need a pick 6. You need a big sack. You need a stop on 4th down.
Well, actually, if anything, I would argue what made Washington and TCU fit into that bucket so perfectly is that was how they played. They would give up a touchdown, and then you're like, oh, great, this is done. And then they would suddenly march down the field and then be like, oh, I'm sucked right back in.
No,
Oh, wait, no,
theater.
it's done again. Oh, wait, I'm back. Oh, no, maybe not. And then you're just on the ultimate high at the end of the game.
That's phenomenal theater. Louisville was 3 for 3 on 4th downs. That's not good. That's not sustainable.
What do you
That's not
remember
good.
about those 2 teams when we covered them the last 2 years? They were heart attacks.
Yeah, I know they were
absolute
heart attacks.
That's what Miami is.
But I like
is
Miami
building
this
towards.
year. I need less.
Being
I
a
need
huge heart attack.
those 2 teams were 3 stents in the 3 main ventricles. All right. I need Miami to be a 1 stenter. I need Miami to be okay. You ate a little too much sodium this year, and you're not on the treadmill enough. Not you can't get out of the Wendy's parking lot eating the Krabby Patty burgers, and you just physically are not moving at all. That is the heart attack that you're getting with Miami right now. Give me a 1 stenty. That's all I'm asking for.
No,
I guess that's too much to ask for.
yeah,
in
that
college
is too
football.
much to ask.
Maybe
for.
I'm the crazy
I want
one.
one chaotic team, man. Let me have the chaotic team. Speaking of the wagon of this year, though, it's Indiana of all teams. The Hoosiers, Kurt Cignetti, head coach, who kicked our asses when he was at Elon and JMU when we played at Rhode Island. He made fools of us, and he made a fool of Nebraska today, 56-7. This is egregious. This is insane. This is ridiculous that they dominated them this much. The craziest part is that Curtis Rourke, starting quarterback, who's had a phenomenal year, went out partway through this game, and they turned to their backup, who had a pretty strong finish to the game. Tyson Lawton, that running game, the pass rush that they have is so swarming. Their secondary makes big plays. They are, and they feel like, Sean, one of the most well-rounded teams in the country. I don't think that they have they don't have a guy at a singular position group that I think wins a single award this year for best position in the country. They're not going to have a guy that's going to be a first-round pick. I don't think that that's going to happen. But what they have is a experienced offensive line, an experienced quarterback when he's back from what happened to his hand, good receivers who make plays and come down with the football, 2 really good running backs that run hard, a pass rush who plays relentlessly, and a secondary who takes advantage of mistakes. You couldn't ask for a better team. That was what we dealt with when he was at JMU and when he was at Elon. And that's what we're now starting to see with this Indiana team. He is the ultimate motivator. He's the ultimate rallier of men. And this Indiana team, man, I think that they're capable of reaching the playoff in a year where it feels like there's so many frauds. They feel like they're building the case because frauds don't win 56-7 against a good Nebraska team.
It's PTSD, brother. It feels
that's
like
the better, most important thing to bring up here.
It feels like these JMU teams that when we're in the scouting rooms, it's like, okay, there's going to be small conference guys, but that's only because it's the FCS. He's just taking the same scheme and the way that he runs his defense.
Well, he literally said
everything is just.
He was on McAfee this week. He literally said he's brought those coordinators everywhere with him since he was at.
He's a genius.
I think it was Indiana. No, is it Indiana University of Pennsylvania? I think
IUP. I think
where he was.
It's really a relentless team that plays like a team, and they go out and play like they've got the biggest balls on the field every single time. I don't know. I've never felt like a team could be intimidated by Indiana since I really started focusing on college football. Holy hell! What is the next team if that's facing them going to be thinking? Nebraska's got dudes. Nebraska's got a talented quarterback, a coach that's been there before in big moments, a team that can play. This is not a weak Nebraska team. This isn't a Nebraska lol cow. Look at Nebraska being sorry with their sold out stadium type team. No, they're legit. They have big, mean defensive linemen. Dylan Raiola is a dude. They turned him over 3 times today because that's what Curt Cignetti teams do. They don't care who you have. They're going to turn your quarterback over, and they're going to have 170 yards rushing between their top 2 ball carriers, and they're going to have a combined 17 rushes off of that. Incredible form from the Indiana Hoosiers and what he's built in such a short amount of time. I mean, coach of the year at this point. Coach of the year, and Indiana legitimately might be like the 4th best team in the Big Ten.
And I know this sounds crazy too, because like what I just said about Kalen DeBoer and like being patient, but every situation's not built the same. Kalen DeBoer takes over Nick Saban recruited squad and a bunch of kids that some of them might not be bought into what he's saying. And that's what we've talked about here before. Instead, you've got the JMU All-Stars and then a bunch of kids pulled from across the country that are just there to play ball and prove everybody wrong. It's a very different rallying point. I know some people are going to say I'm contradicting myself. If you know ball, you understand that that's not the case, and there's no contradiction here. They're just such stark different situations.
If Cignetti was in Alabama and DeBoer was in Indiana, I don't think that the results are completely matched up to a T what they would be right now. Mm-hmm. But what I like about Cignetti is it doesn't look like he wants to be your buddy. It looks like all he wants to do is win. There was a great screen cap from the game when they were up 41-7.
Oh, he was like pissed.
He looked seething mad.
I almost took a picture of it with my phone, but I hate people who do that, so I didn't. But he just like was stone cold. He looked like
seething.
You know what he makes me think of? He doesn't totally look like just like a pure ball coach. He looks like somebody's dad who's coaching your middle school team.
Yeah.
Who's just mad. You know, you're up 40-0 and he's just mad because you're not giving a full effort. It's like, hey, why is Mr. Johnson so pissed at us?
Dude, I know exactly. Everybody has played AAU basketball knows that feeling, because if you're in a house circuit or just an AAU, there's always a coach that you know you'd never wanted to be picked. That you'd never want to play for him because he runs the players like hell. He yells at them in front of their parents. And I'm like, Dad, can you coach my team, please? We'll have fun. We'll play knockout in practice every now and then. No. There's some coaches that are just running it like the Navy. Not similarly, Navy pretty good this year, but yeah,
stay on focus.
He is
okay,
on track. Maybe is the wordage that you're looking for.
No, focus. Stay on focus. Stay focused.
How about you stay on focus, hack? Regardless,
finish the point.
Cignetti's a dude, man. That's the point.
To talk about their just remaining schedule very quickly before we move on. Washington, Michigan State, Michigan at Ohio State, and Purdue is what you have written down here. I think that they're not going to beat Ohio State. Sorry, Indiana fans. I think that there's room for one more dud on here, one dud on here that just like unexpected loss. You don't play well. You lose a game, you drop one. Everyone's bound to do it. Everybody has a bad game. Maybe that's Washington. Maybe that's at Michigan State. I don't know which game it's going to be, but it's on the map there for them. I argue that a 10-2 Indiana team deserves to potentially get in as one of the last teams over a 9-3 SEC team. I'm making the case right now. I see a playoff quality team. I see a team that's going to put up a competitive fight. I see a team that's going to fill a narrative and make the playoff interesting instead of sticking like a 11-1 BYU team in there. I would much rather get to see this Indiana team.
If they're, I agree with the dud factor. If they're reading their news clippings at 9-0,
They don't feel like that type of team.
and they played Michigan where they should, crazy enough, beat Michigan and then lose to Ohio State. I could see 2 losses. I could also easily see 1 loss, and then they're confidently in that playoff picture. It's good for college football if Indiana makes a playoff this year. It just is. They're a team that rose up to the occasion, said, you know what, if everyone else is going to put out weak resumes, weak duds, whatever you want to chalk it up to, we're going to go out and we're going to win games, and we're going to leave no doubt. And I hope they do leave no doubt that it would be a tremendous story for the sport.
Sean, there were a couple of coaches, 3 coaches in particular, that had serious duds for this week. And I think that there's one glaring, obvious one that has put themselves in a very sticky situation for the future with their program. I think the other 2 are fine. I'm referring to Lincoln Riley, who blew a 4th quarter lead and then got alley-ooped on by Maryland's quarterback and running back to fall to 3-4 this year. Hugh Freeze, who this team is now 2-5. They had a lead over Missouri. They were winning the football game. They allowed Missouri to do seesawish, obnoxious things, rally back, get back in the football game. And then Brent Venables got smoked by South Carolina. Horrible, horrible matchup, as I talked about on the betting show. Having to deal with that defensive line going up against your makeshift Home Depot offensive line that you put together just with whatever you could find in the aisles. We're going to just put plywood wherever we can find it and hope that it keeps this unit together. 9 sacks is what they allowed, by the way, which is an insane total. I think if there's anyone who is in the worst footing, it is Lincoln Riley. Brent Venables just signed an extension. I think that he and his agent were smart enough to realize this is going to be a hard year. We can finish 7-5. We're going to go to a bowl game. We're going to keep recruiting at a high level, and we're going to be completely fine. You just need to be patient, and this is a sign that the administration was willing to give him that. Hugh Freeze, there's financial commitment to him, and this is a disappointing loss. But I think that there is still a little bit of grace, this being his 2nd year, and how much time we've seen other coaches in the SEC who have done worse that amount of time that they've been given. But this is pathetic for Lincoln Riley. This is a guy who, and I have said this constantly, and I will continue to push this narrative because I don't think he's a very good coach that everyone paints him to be. He is so overrated. He coached multiple great quarterbacks, and he turned them into Heisman Trophy winners. But you ask him to do anything that translates to winning a conference outside of the Big 12, being in the national championship landscape of legitimate value, he's not going to be able to accomplish it. He can't win in the Big 10. Them playing in the Big 10 and going cross country to play a team like Maryland, to blow the lead like they did, they are a walking dead body. Of course, they played great in Las Vegas. Of course, they got hyped for that game when they had all that time to prepare. But this team is not built to succeed in the conference. It was understandable if they were going to drop games to teams like Michigan, or if they were going to lose to teams like Penn State. But you can't be going around losing these matchups against Minnesota and Maryland, the middle to the back end. That has proven the narrative that everybody pushed in the offseason, Sean, that they weren't going to be physical enough and that they were going to get run over.
I was more angry with Lincoln when he didn't do anything with Caleb Williams. That was a disaster just because of how talented that guy was, at least at college. You can't lose to Maryland. You just can't. You can't blow 14
They're really bad this year.
They're not good, and you lost to
Cam
them.
Rogers was having a field day.
Was he wearing his sunglasses?
I don't know, but there were a lot of posts that he was at the homecoming.
Of course he was. I'm sure everyone knew him. Yeah, you can't lose to Minnesota, and the loss to Michigan keeps looking worse because you had a quarterback and you lost to a team without a quarterback. I think the Hugh Freeze, though, is my hot seat. He hasn't done dick at Auburn. He lost to Mizzou today against Drew Pine and Brady Cook, who had to come back from the hospital.
Talk about LinkedIn superstar Drew Pine. But wait, did he actually?
Brady Cook went and
hospital?
got an MRI mid-game, returned to the game, and beat Auburn.
I didn't know that. That's actually insane.
Hugh Freeze stinks. John Talty put this out. Through 20 games at Auburn, Brian Harsin was 9-11 as a head coach. Freeze is 8-12.
Well, I got to do tonight though.
Harsin had the plug pulled on him after his 21st game. That's next week for Hugh.
Yeah, but
why do people love Hugh Freeze?
He didn't Harsin didn't politic enough, and Hugh Freeze is that goofy ass smile that warms people's hearts. Apparently,
you know
see
what?
that picture of his goofy ass smile.
I don't like Hugh Freeze. I don't. I think he's a bad coach. I don't know why they hired him. Go stay in the G5 with Liberty. Do that. You can't handle coaching this Auburn team. It's too much for you. Auburn was supposed to be, let's make them a riser. Let's make Auburn a good team because they almost beat Alabama last year and they lost just because of a miracle. Oh, but they'll be better this year with Hugh. Under the Hugh system, they stink. They're awful. I can't. I'm tired of Hugh Freeze. I'm over it. Harsin got a bad rap. The writing was on the wall before he started his second season. And Hugh Freeze just has a bunch of immunity? That's BS. Venables has the coolest seat out of these three.
Yeah.
Lincoln at a close 2. But Venables isn't off the hook for me either. The QB controversy, neither of them can play. You lose by freaking 26 points to South Carolina.
Well, the craziest part with Lincoln is he actually has the safest situation because his buyout's like $88 million or something crazy like that. USC doesn't give enough of a shit like Texas A&M does to move on from them. They don't. They do not have the fan base that is that motivated with that kind of oil money moving around.
You're right.
To make that move and to get rid of him.
Clay Helton
But-
was there for a minute. man.
Yeah.
He was.
And Clay Helton was more successful than Lincoln Riley was until this point.
Dude, I don't know what the hell they got going on right now. That is embarrassing. They lost to Maryland. They went to overtime with Penn State, and you could see the bones of this team.
Yeah.
You could see when the offense is going. You could see that the defense can turn
They
over. a
can't
quarterback.
hold a lead. That's the most
They can't
embarrassing
do
part.
it.
No, it's just
God.
a bunch of losers. If I had power ranking for coaches that I have the most disdain for, that I think are the most overrated and the most overappreciated for no reason, for a lack of accomplishment, be Shane Beamer 1 and be
come
Lincoln
on.
Riley number 2.
Come
Because
on.
Shane Beamer, the minute he does something, everybody's acting like he's the next coming of Nick Saban. And then, and don't act like that's not true.
No, he's got those people in Columbia, South Carolina fired up for
Yeah,
good
man,
reason.
you
A
beat
king
up
in
on
his
Oklahoma.
kingdom.
Good job, man. Good
Oklahoma
job.
is like one of the. That is a good job. Oklahoma is like arguably the most successful college football franchise since 2000.
And Lincoln's number 2 because he is a Heisman Trophy merchant and he's just riding off of that. That's all he can do. He can just produce Heisman Trophy first round quarterbacks.
It's
So arguably, most of those guys, they're not actually, most of them aren't even like really, haven't been that good in the NFL.
yeah, that's
Caleb's too soon to tell. Baker's been on a recovery track, but he's been on multiple teams.
Yeah.
The
he
journey
wasn't a franchise saver.
Kyler Murray's been taking a step backward, and
He'll
he's
be on the
been banged
Giants
up.
next year.
And Jalen Hurts is extremely overrated as well.
Yeah. You know what? When you put it under that lens, Lincoln Riley really just was like the first coach to not wear socks with his shoes and tight pants on the sidelines, and everyone thought he was an innovator. Oh my God, they both.
You gotta get
stink.
the young head. He started this terrible trend
Oh.
where everyone's like, "We need the young head coach. We need to get the." This guy knows Lincoln Riley. We need to hire him. That's literally Shane Beamer. Shane Beamer was literally on the, and I think that it's even more hilarious to play into the state.
But you
He
keep
was
going back to Shane.
Shane Beamer was on Lincoln's coaching staff. He got hired off of his coaching staff.
Good God.
Look, quick final thought before we get out of here. BYU goes down the wire 38-35. Iowa State goes down the wire. Ironically, same exact score, 38-35. Batshit bonkers, dipshit, stupid games at home for both these teams. I still think Iowa State's better. I think that BYU is a mess, or not a mess. I think that they're a little overhyped, and the game that they played was messy, is what I meant to say. Iowa State also played messy, but I feel like that there's still something more to take away, and BYU's kind of riding off of a little bit of luck right now.
There's two just doofus moments from both of these games. Iowa State, you just cannot drop the ball before the goal line on a pick six.
No, that was UCF who did it.
Was that UCF? I thought it was Iowa State. Regardless, you can't do it.
It was UCF who did it.
Oh,
That was
all right.
what-
Then good for Iowa State for doing or pulling it off and getting back against UCF. That's gross. For BYU, I don't like that the quarterback has an arm sleeve on his throwing arm. I think that's bad. I think it's a bad
Yeah, it
look.
was UCF.
I think it impacts him poorly. Pardon my mistake on the drop ball then. Why does it keep happening? I don't know, man. Go to a high school football game and ask me if you're still seeing the same stupid shit that you saw when you were in high school. It's all the same. Dumb high schoolers doing dumb stuff, dumb college players dropping the ball before the goal line to try to look swaggy for an Instagram video. It's just what happens. I'm kind of over the anger about it. It's just more of like a, ugh, are you kidding
You
me?
like linemen who wear arm sleeves?
No, I don't like linemen that wear arm
Double
sleeves.
arm sleeve
I like
offensive linemen.
Linemen with their guts out, and I like linemen that throw up at the line of scrimmage. That's what I like. I don't like the BYU quarterback with a shooting sleeve while he's barely getting by Oklahoma State.
You know who's the all-time no one will ever be more swagged out offensive lineman than Holland Pierce, who is 6'8", who I was showing you yesterday, 6'8". He's got the neck brace, like all the way jutted up. He's got the arm pads. He's got the extra arm brace on top, and then he's just got some taped hands and some taped gloves. Like, look at this.
He looks like a Terminator.
He looks like Blastoise. He's built like Blastoise with the whole back going. Like, look at this. Every offensive lineman, if you're thinking of wearing 2 arm sleeves,
he's got
check out and check back in and look at this dude's drip.
He got the Tyron Smith meta going, which is good.
God.
If I could look like any person on earth, it would be Tyron Smith. That's swaggy. I want a quarterback with no tattoos on his arms, with no visor, with maybe a hand towel or a hand warmer. That's all the swag you get. You don't get a leg sleeve. You don't get gloves. Just go out and throw the ball and hand it off, please. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All-time hater Sean. At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio, at Hack City Pod. Hit the subscribe button, 5-star review, and we will talk to you folks later.